Hello, this is Glenn Irvin, and this is a presentation on flipped mastery learning and how to utilize our learning management system, Schoology, to make this a reality. So, what exactly is a flipped classroom? One of the key goals of a flipped classroom is to turn students from passive learners into active learners. We want students to do things so that they understand them. There's much research that states that students who are learning in an active learning model are more likely to remember and be able to utilize the knowledge gained in the classroom. Students in a flipped classroom work on real-world problems during class time. They work on these problems with other students, cooperatively and collaboratively. Those are key elements in a flipped classroom. There is research also that states that classes that employ collaborative learning techniques actually show academic achievement. Another important component of the flipped classroom is differentiated instruction. It is integrated in this type of teaching. So what is mastery learning and how does it fit with the flipped classroom? Mastery learning model, simply stated in this little graph here, is you give instruction followed by a formative assessment. If a student doesn't reach mastery, you reteach, you correct the things that were wrong, and then you retest until a student reaches mastery. Once they reach mastery, they can move on to the next thing, the next level, the next unit, whatever you are teaching. Lots of studies have been done on mastery learning, and this was one of them. This is a meta-analysis of 108 studies on the effectiveness of mastery learning programs. And it just states that mastery learning programs have a positive effect on student learning. So if the research states that mastery learning programs have a positive effect on student learning, why have they not been implemented throughout the United States as a whole? Well, these two guys, Aaron Sams and Jonathan Bergman, are the authors of Flip Your Classroom, Reach Every Student in Every Class Every Day. And they state that basically mastery learning model teachers found that they would have to reteach lessons over and over again. They found it difficult to write many different assessments, quizzes, and they've also found it impossible to keep track of the objectives the students were working on all at the same time. So there's just too many things going on all at the same time to try to keep track of. So the flipped classroom offers an environment where mastery learning model can actually succeed. The flipped mastery model allows students to watch videos at their own pace, demonstrate their understanding of the objectives through some sort of formative assessment, and before moving on to the next learning objective. So what are the benefits of a flipped mastery program? Well, first of all, your struggling students can get one-on-one help from the teacher during class and to help them achieve their objectives. Of course, the advanced students can move on once they've demonstrated mastery of certain content. And you have the teacher can assess students, gauge their understanding, and remediate if necessary, all within the classroom structure. You may still be asking yourself, yes, but how can I make this happen without overwhelming myself? Basically, I'm teaching all 30 of my students in my class 30 different things all at different times. And the reality is with sites like Schoology, the learning management system here, you can utilize the management system to make this happen, and I'm going to show you how. You may or may not be familiar with this page here, and this is my Schoology Spanish 3 materials site. And this is specifically their tab where they can find any of their materials for the class. I have created a folder that basically encompasses an entire unit, in this case chapter 13 of this unit that we're studying. And I've placed all the materials that they will need in order to be able to successfully complete this unit. Now, it would be a big headache to try to keep track of all of the different things and try to tell students each day, okay, once you reach this one thing, then go ahead and do this other thing. Normally, it would be a big headache, but what Schoology has done is given us the ability to be able to set parameters for when students want to or need to move on to the next item. And they do this by something called student completion. I have several things in this folder. I'll tell you about just a couple of them so you have an idea about what they might be. The first thing I always start every chapter off with is something called essential questions and overview. This is basically going to be the items that will be on their big test. And in this case, there's a bunch of questions in Spanish here about the essential things they need to know by the end of the chapter. We go over these, and we also cover those almost on a daily basis at the beginning of class. Then there's some vocabulary sites here as far as this is a Quizlet link with vocab items. And then one of the coolest things is being able to create tests and test banks. This is called Las Lenguas Side Quest, and it basically what it states here is it has 5 random questions in a set. And there's a possibility of 13 different questions that it can choose from this little bank. So Schoology is able to choose out 5 of the random questions, and then a student, when they're taking this quiz, can demonstrate that yes, they understand those materials and that they can, yes, go ahead and move on. And so anyway, once I've set my items inside of the folder, and here's some assignments, some quizzes, maybe some videos that they have to watch and take notes on, some activities that they have to complete, I can then set how they can move on to the next item in the folder. Because right now, I can view everything here inside the folder. But as a student coming into the folder would only be able to view the first item. How would they then be able to view the second item? Well, that depends upon how I set this thing called student completion. So this little student completion check mark here is so powerful. Let me just show it to you. I'm going to click on it here, and it opens up basically some options for me. Depending upon what kind of material you're working with, in this case, this is just a document, a Word document. And so the only option I have for a Word document is the kids can view it. Okay? But if it was a quiz, for example, like this one right here, the students could have just viewed it, or they could just take the quiz, or I can make them score a certain score. In this case, I wanted them to get 8 out of 10 points right. Okay, so they had to show mastery. That yes, I do know that vocab. Now I can go ahead and move on. So in this case, you can see there's a couple of different assignments that are set at score at least a certain number of points. Some of the items are just viewing things. Okay? And some of the items require the students to go ahead and submit things, to actually turn in an assignment before they can open up the next thing. So I've set all of this up at the beginning, and students can work their way through each one of the assignments until they get to the end. And so some teachers would have an issue with, well, okay, so what if a student just blasts through all of this stuff, then what do they do at the end? Well, I stole this idea from a guy named Chris Avilas, who is just an expert at this kind of mastery learning in his classroom. And he has a grounding activity called a free play. And a free play is a way for the students to basically, once they complete everything else, they don't have to do this. It's an opportunity for them to take their learning to a new level. And the only way they can actually earn an A, and the reason why this is worth 134.4 points, is because I calculated that all of the other points are going to be worth 88%, okay, even if they scored 100% on all the other activities. Now they must take their learning to a new level. And this gives them kind of an enrichment activity that could take a few days. So some of my students, for example, this week are done on a Wednesday with everything else. They've completed the final assessment, they've done well, but they're still working on their free play. And the free play also gives them an option, as it says down here, write a proposal and present something to me that's an even better idea. So if they do that, I'll check out their proposal, and if I do approve it, I tell them that I'll add it to our list of different activities that we'll do for years to come. Okay? So it's one of the ways to be able to ground them back in an activity. Cool. So now you have an idea about kind of how you can use Schoology to make flipped mastery learning a reality. It kind of organizes all your materials. It lets you set parameters. Students move from one activity to the next. And it's just really pretty easy to go ahead and use. A lot of work up front, but overall very easy to use. I have several references, and I'll post these also on my link there on my site about just both flipped classroom and mastery learning, and flipped mastery learning also. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. Thank you very much.